How strong are your intuitive abilities? While everyone has intuition, the vast majority of us do not use it to its most positive and powerful extent. And most of this has to do with fears, energetic blockages, and self doubt that we all carry. So, if you have struggled with your own intuitive abilities, then you are in luck because tonight's episode is all about intuition. So, merry meet, I'm Aislin, and this is Ask Aislin. And tonight we are here talking about strengthening your intuitive abilities. So, welcome to those who are joining us live. If you're here with us, say hi in the chat. Let us know you're here. Also, let me know if the microphone is working now. We've had some issues a little bit earlier. And if you are with us live, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. You can leave questions and comments, and we will answer all of those at the end of the episode. Also, make sure to leave a heart or a thumbs up to let us know and help us get this out into the feed of more people. So merry meet, and just if anybody could let me know it's sounding okay. All right, good. I tested it in a private group that only contains myself, and it was working. So I was hoping it was going to work when we moved here. Okay, all right, so let's dive in. We have a lot to talk about. So, one of the biggest questions that I get asked about is intuition. People are trying to figure out ways to strengthen their intuition. And what generally turns out to be the case is there are challenges that are standing in the way of people being as intuitive as they would like to. Those challenges can be kind of reduced down to three main things: our self doubt, our fears about our own intuition, and also energetic blockages in the body. Now, the energetic blockages tend to be the case for the vast majority of us. So, I'm going to start by talking about energetic blockages, how they can look different depending on where they are in your body. And you may find that you're going to relate to one or more of these. This will immediately give you some things that you can do in order to start working on your intuition. But what's really interesting is that it's a lot of times it's not what you expect. People who think that they're having issues with their intuition often think it's up about the third eye, it's in your crown chakra, it's in your upper chakras, and the majority of the time it's actually in your lower chakras, everything below the third eye. And so that's what we're going to start by talking about. Then we'll talk about self doubt and kind of how to get over past that and past some of your fears that you might be carrying, whether those are conscious or unconscious. So, the chakra that is most connected to intuition is the third eye, as I mentioned, and some people also say the crown. The crown tends to connect you more to the expansiveness of the universe outside of you. The crown is really what's operating when we're connecting to deities. You could say in ritual that very much the crown is open and operating, hopefully at an optimal level. And the reality is that many of those who are called to witchcraft or called to a kind of magical pathway have very strong third eyes and very strong crowns. And that's part of the reason why you're called to this in the first place, because those two chakras are operating optimally. The blockages, though, still exist. And so, even with those really good third eyes and those crown chakras, we're still experiencing intuitive issues. And so these blockages, so it is true that you could still have blockages in your third eye and your crown if you're a highly spiritual person. But highly spiritual people tend to have the most blockages in their lower chakras. So, there's probably a wide variety of reasons why that would be. Spending a lot of time kind of up in the head means we're spending less time paying attention to the part of the body that's underneath it. Kind of connecting out probably from a very young age. Many people are kind of called to connecting to nature spirits, connecting to energies outside of them, perhaps connecting to ancestors or ghosts or things like that, spirits. And so we spend a lot of time sort of developing those upper chakras, even without knowing it when we're little. And then as we move into our adulthood, we continue to work on those chakras by studying witchcraft and things like that and working with deities. But we don't spend a lot of time below it, okay? So, what what we find is that the majority of people who are struggling with intuition will benefit from some kind of daily or almost daily energetic practice. Now, the chakras system tends to be the most accessible one. So, working with the chakras, working with the elements. And while the third eye itself is not connected to any one of the elements, all of the chakras beneath it are. And so that's where we're going to kind of start our conversation today. So we're going to begin with the throat chakra and we'll work down from there. And as we talk about this, just see if any of this resonates with you. If you feel that one or more of these chakras have blockages in them, then that is where your work will begin. And also, I always like to say this is if you find that all five that I'm going to talk about today you think have blockages in them, that's okay too. It's very, I just want to normalize that because sometimes people will relate to all of this and then they start to feel bad about themselves or like it's hopeless, and it's absolutely not. The more places that you have to work, the more things you can do to strengthen these areas, and that will in turn strengthen your intuition. Okay, so don't feel hopeless. I work with all five of these chakras as well. Okay, so starting with the throat chakra is Vishuddhi, and it translates to purity. The throat chakra is connected to the element of ether, or akasha in Sanskrit. In a modern witch's practice, we would probably call this the spirit element, so that these are just interchangeable words for the element that controls the throat. The element of ether, spirit, akasha, is the element that gives birth to all the elements below it. So we're kind of starting top down. The throat chakra is more complex. As we move up through the chakras, the energy becomes more complex. It reaches further outside of us, whereas the lower chakras tend to be very much about us, our own personal space. The upper chakras, including the throat, tend to be about us and our ability to kind of make a mark on the world. Now, blockages here blockages in the throat chakra will make it difficult for you to hear through your spiritual ears. So it'll make it difficult for the energy of the throat to optimize, because you have energy that's stuck in the throat. I should say the energy of the third eye to optimize because you have energy stuck in the throat. It also will make it hard for you to recognize messages that are coming through to you from the universe when you have blockages in the throat. And so in the previous episode that we did last week, episode 129 was all about signs and synchronicities, and we talked about how there are signs and synchronicities are all around us at all times, but we don't always know how to hear them or see them, and that's where the throat chakra comes in. Now, signs that your throat chakra has blockages, you can see that through your behaviors and through the way that you feel in your body. So your body creates a barometer that you can measure how in balance or out of balance any one given chakra is. So ways to know that the throat chakra has blockages or has some kind of energetic issues is difficulty speaking. So if there's difficulty speaking in public, difficulty speaking even online, stumbling over words, struggling to get the right words out, difficulty speaking your truth. If there's parts about you that you feel you have to hide and you can't actually show them or express them, that's going to be an issue of the throat chakra. And then looking at the physical body, any issues of the neck, so neck pain, ear pain, throat pain, jaw pain, and any issues of the thyroid, whether it's hypo or hyper or Hashimoto's or any issue of the thyroid. So these would be ways that you could know that you have issues of your throat. Now, sometimes you'll know that you have like kind of long-term issues of the throat if you've struggled for a long time to speak, or you're hiding parts of yourself, or perhaps you have had carried TMJ for a really, really long time, something like that. And then other times you may notice that like maybe you don't have a lot of issues with the throat normally, but you can develop them in certain situations. So what I always know is if I start to get like a kink in my neck, which I had like all last week, it was causing headaches I knew that there was throat chakra issues that I would need to work on. And so I did some of these remedies, which I'm going to share with you, and that greatly helped me. And I worked on the physical, trying to massage it, trying to release some tension in the neck. And then I also worked on some of these spiritual practices, and now I feel much better this week. So it's another thing too, a way to know that you have some issues with the throat is if you have like a hoarse voice, or your voice gets hoarse just like temporarily, that can also be issues of the throat. And so it's just worth looking at the throat, exploring, where could there be blockages here, and if so, what can I do to help? So one of the very best things you can do for the throat is chanting and singing and speaking out loud. So even if it's a whisper, whispers are good, but the more volume that you can bring to your voice. So if you need to scream, or yell or scream into a pillow if it's going to disturb people, but activating the throat and activating the voice is one of the very best things you can do for any throat chakra blockages you might have. Another thing that you can do that's highly effective is Brahmari breath. So Brahmari is the goddess of bees in Sanskrit in the Hindu pantheon, and the Brahmari breath is a breath that's named after her. So Brahmari breath is very easy. It's a great breath for, like I said, clearing the throat chakra of energetic blockages. Also, if you have trouble speaking or you're going to have trouble saying something to someone, doing a few rounds of Brahmari breath before you talk can help you express yourself better. So very easy breath. You're just going to plug your ears. And so when you do this, if you're doing it with me while I'm teaching it, you might want to just keep your ears open for a moment. But when you do the breath, you will plug them. And then you take a deep inhale through your nose usually, but you can also do it through your mouth. And then as you exhale, you're going to make a humming noise out. It sounds like a bee, which is why we call it Brahmari breath. So you would let that breath carry out, and then you would start again by taking an inhale, and I would recommend doing several rounds of that and see how you feel. So if you're somebody who knows you've already got the throat chakra blockages, Brahmari breath every day for a few minutes or even just a few rounds of the breath can be highly, highly effective. Now, if you're somebody who likes to work with the gods, deities, different deities that are connected to the throat chakra are the goddess Brahmari, like we mentioned. Sarasvati is another Hindu deity who is highly connected to the throat chakra. She's a goddess of expression and creative expression, so she also helps you tap into creativity. Coventina is a Celtic goddess. We worked with her in Shadow Seekers, I think last year when we were working with the throat chakra. She is very good. She's also connected to the sacral chakra. And there is a connection between the sacral chakra and the throat because they're both creative centers. So if you're really trying to tap into creativity, Coventina is a very good one. She's also connected to the water element. And then Athena is also a very good goddess for working with the throat chakra. Okay, so moving on, we'll move on to the heart chakra next. There's many blockages there, and just saying merry meet to those who are joining us. I see Felicia and Jamie are here, and I see Danielle and Stephanie and Kurt, so I'm glad everything's sounding okay. And as we go, you can also let us know if you feel like you've got any blockages in any of these chakras as we're going, and then kind of consider how that could be impacting your intuition. So the next chakra below the throat is Anahata, the heart chakra. The heart chakra is connected to air, and it is the bridge between the lower chakras and the upper chakras. Now, here's where the heart chakra begins to impact our intuition. So the throat is very easy to see. It's right next to the third eye. So if you have blockages here, you can see how it's going to be connected to the chakra that's next to it. And the reality is that chakras are never really in isolation. So although we work with them in isolation in order to heal them, the entire system is what's functioning at all times. So chakras, the closer that chakras are to one another, the more that they can impact each other when they have blockages. So throat chakra blockages vastly greatly will be impacting your third eye. Now, the heart is going to impact the third eye and your intuition because of emotional issues that it can bring up. So if there are a lot of emotions, it can be very hard to be tapped into your intuition. See, the deal is that in order to be really connected to your intuition, we need to be in a very relaxed state. So if we have some kind of hot emotions, we have like really emotions that are very unregulated, that is going to create major issues in being able to tap into the third eye and the intuition. So signs that you have may have issues in your heart chakra are, like I said, kind of unregulated or dysregulated emotions. There's nothing wrong with emotions. We want to feel them. But when they take over and they're like all that they're exactly or everything that's in control, or they're in control of everything, I guess I should say, that's where we start to run into problems. So we want to be able to find good ways to express them and good outlets for our emotions, but we don't want them overwhelming us to the point that we can't even hear the intuition that is going on above, right? So signs that your throat chakra may have issues are, if they're in the body, it's shoulder pain, chest pain, heart issues. Of course, heart issues themselves need to be taken care of by a physical doctor. But if you do have heart issues, or sometimes, like, I don't really have heart issues, but I will sometimes get some kind of tension in my chest, those are signs that the heart needs to be worked on. It needs some opening. A lot of us spend a lot of time kind of like slumped over computers. Our posture is not really great, and so really working to open the heart can help to relieve some of that tension. That helps us physically, but it also helps us energetically. Other signs that you have some issues with the heart chakra: arm pain, lung problems, breathing problems, asthma, bronchitis. If you're somebody who gets a lot of bronchitis, that can also be a sign that your heart chakra could use some work. So emotional issues are also here, like I mentioned, and difficulty connecting and opening up to other people. So the remedies here are therapy. Shadow work is great for the heart chakra. Restorative heart chakra practices. This is where typically very easy, where you're sort of reclined on your back. Sometimes you'll put like a towel or a pillow underneath sort of the upper back, and you really try to open up the chest, and then lie back and sort of relax with your chest lifted and open. Heart opening kind of kundalini kriyas or exercises. So like a really good one is outstretching your arms like this. And then you bring your right hand kind of close to your heart. You don't necessarily touch it, just sort of close to the heart. And you can look slightly to the left on the inhale. And then on the exhale, you bring your left hand to your heart. You look towards your right hand. And then you just go back and forth. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So this is very good for opening the energy of the heart. It's also good for the kind of the physical opening of the chest, but very good for balancing that energy. The heart chakra is also about taking in, and so many of us are givers and we don't take enough. And so this exercise sort of encourages us to bring in, take things, pull them towards your heart, pull towards your heart the things that you need or the things that you want. Now, if you like to work with deities that can help you work through blockages of the heart chakra are Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion, Demeter, Aphrodite is someone that we recently worked on with in Shadow Seekers for a self-love ritual. And then Durga, the Hindu deity Durga, she is a great mother goddess to work with for your heart. So now we move into the bottom three. These three tend to be the ones with the most blockages, and the solar plexus is very much connected to our self-doubt. And we'll spend some good time later talking about self-doubt. But let's start by just talking a bit about the solar plexus for those who don't know much about it. It's called Manipura, the lustrous gem or the city of gems. It is connected to the element of fire. So here's where you can bring in fire. This is your will, and this is a big one for many people. As I mentioned, there is personal self-doubt that we carry, and there is also collective self-doubt that we carry. So your personal self-doubt is probably, for most people, this is going to be the major one. So I hear over and over and over, I can't trust my intuition, um, and I can't trust myself. I'll hear people say it in other venues as well, like when they're talking about their witchcraft. I can't trust my magic. I can't trust the spell work I do. So if you hear yourself saying those things, you're not alone. A lot of people experience this as well, far more than we'll probably ever admit it. But there is this doubt that we have, and it comes from many sources. A lot of it from when we were young. Many of us grew up with caregivers who may not have had the abilities that we had, or caregivers who are incapable of helping us to develop those things. Like for me, I could always see energy, but I was taken to doctor after doctor after doctor trying to find out what was wrong with my eyes. And there was nothing wrong with my eyes. That's what the experts in Chicago eventually told my mom. But so you're taught from an early age, at least some of us are taught from a very early age, not to trust those things that we're seeing or we're experiencing or we're feeling. And then that trains you to just not trust it. It only gets worse as you become an adult. And now you have to, as an adult, you have to try to undo all of that conditioning, right? We also know that children are much closer to, the veils are much thinner around children. Children can see through the veils. And then we are taught as we get older that that's not possible. And so even if we could see through the veils at one point, when we become adults, many of us can't any longer. And that's again through the conditioning. So we have to work on this, and unfortunately, it isn't a quick fix. Like none of this is a quick fix. It's if it's important to you, intuition is not something that someone can snap their fingers and okay, now you're psychic. It's not going to work like that for most people. Most people will have to identify their blockages. And for many people, it's going to be here in the solar plexus with their self doubt. Now, in addition to the problems that can arise from having caregivers or people around us who tell us that what we're experiencing isn't real, or that we're crazy or things like that, you will also have collective self doubt. So the collective has great self doubt in magic, or great doubt, I should say, in magic, in the unseen. We focus very much on what we can prove through science, and through what we can arrive at through logical thought. So we very much sort of put logic on this pedestal, and our intuition is somewhere down here. So we're taught to trust logic before intuition. And the reality is that they both have a very valid and important place in the way we make decisions and the way that we go about our lives. So overcoming the collective self-doubt, unfortunately, that's something that everyone's tapped into the collective. Even if you go off the grid and live off the grid, you're still connected to the collective because it's an energetic connection. So how do we combat that? So we'll have to combat all of this through practices and making intentions that we will overcome our self-doubt, right? So, one thing that you can do is try to challenge yourself to not always look outside of you for the answers. So, we're kind of trained in society with a society of so many experts. We're trained to go to experts whenever we have problems. And sometimes there are problems that are things we cannot fix, like computer problems, for example. We need experts sometimes for those types of problems. And sometimes we have medical conditions that we absolutely need doctors to help us with because it's not something that we can do on our own. But it's important for us to always consider, have I checked in with myself first about something? Have I asked my intuition first if there's an answer before I look outside for help? And so we talked a lot about this last week in the Signs and Synchronicities episode, because many times what happens is we see a sign outside of us and we immediately, without even thinking about what it could mean, we immediately go online and we start looking it up. And you're training yourself to not trust yourself when you do that. So what I mentioned last week, and it kind of goes the same for here, is you really want to pause for a moment and ask yourself, maybe even spend a day thinking about it before you reach for the internet, or you start asking people outside of yourself what that sign could mean. So this, the same goes with our intuition, is we really have to try to develop that trust in ourselves, and that trust only develops when we give it a chance, and we don't give it a chance when we're immediately looking outside for answers. So see if you can find internal answers, and then go outside, and you can get validation that way. Or perhaps you can't find any internal answers, and if you've tried to find them and they're not there, then go look outside of yourself. But I always recommend, just at least pausing for a few moments to ask yourself internally what something could mean. We live, like I said, in a world of experts and pseudo experts, and so it just makes it feel like we can't trust ourselves. So, so we'll be talking a little bit more about self-doubt and self-belief at the end. I'm going to share with you a self-belief exercise. But continuing sort of the discussion of the solar plexus, other ways besides having that great self-doubt that you would know there were issues with your solar plexus are digestive problems, back pain, especially in the middle of the back, feeling unmotivated, kind of lacking willpower, having like a lot of ideas, but having no ability to actually make them come alive, right? Put them into motion. And then, like I mentioned, self-doubt. The remedies for working with blockages in the solar plexus are probiotics. That's always a confusing one to people, but it's one of the best things you can do for your solar plexus. We have a lot, like our food sources and the way that we eat isn't great for many of us. And so the vast majority of people would benefit from a probiotic. And sometimes that in and of itself will actually help to remove some energetic blockages from the solar plexus. Because remember, the physical and the energetic are so intertwined. Eating with the seasons, eating with your dosha, which is your elemental composition. Those of you who are in Shadow Seekers, we are doing a workshop on Sunday all about the doshas. You're going to learn what your dosha is, and then different strategies that you can use that are specific to you, that will help you sort of balance your energy. Working with the breath of fire, or the dragon's breath. So the breath of fire is a very quick and rapid breath, and it very much builds a lot of fire and heat in your body, can help you very much with self-doubt, especially when it's connected to your intuition. So very easy to do. You can start by just acting like you're fogging up a mirror. It's kind of like panting without the tongue out, and then you just close your mouth, and then you just do that through the nose. So you should feel this pumping of the belly, and it's a very rapid kind of exhale with a passive inhale in between. And if you do that breath for a couple of minutes a day, or almost every day, it works wonders for your energy, but will also very much help you with your solar plexus imbalances, your self-doubt, and that in and of itself can be enough to, kind of help with your intuition and any issues you're having there. And then the self-belief practice, which I will talk about a little bit later. Also, if you want to work with any deities, the deities connected to the solar plexus are Surya, who is the Hindu deity of the sun, Vishnu, who is Lakshmi's consort, Apollo or Ra, any deities you can think of that are connected to fire. So Brigid or Breed. And one of my favorites is Amaterasu, who is the goddess of the sun in Japan. And she is a beautiful goddess to work with for self-doubt, especially when it comes to your intuition. Okay, so moving on. So like I said, I rarely met a person who didn't have some solar plexus issues. So the next one, though, is the sacral chakra. This is Svadhisthana. It is connected to the water element. So here, whereas the solar plexus is going to deal with the self-doubt, so that's what's in the way of your intuition, the sacral chakra can also be about emotions. So like we talked about with the heart, if you're like kind of unregulated emotionally, The sacral chakra and the heart are connected in that way because of their connection to emotions. And so you might find that if you're very emotional, or you're having trouble regulating your emotions, like again, like I said, it's good to feel them, but we can't be overcome by them at all times. So the sacral chakra may be good for you. But the other thing that the sacral chakra is so good for is the ability to go with the flow. So I mentioned earlier, like your intuition won't come to you when you're stressed out. It doesn't come to you when you're clamped down and you're like all this like energy like that. That's not how intuition works. Intuition works much better when your energy is flowing freely and you yourself are going with the flow. So you want to think about this. How able are you to go with the flow, or how often do you go against the flow? What habits or things do you do in your own life that feel like they're going with the flow of kind of the energy around you, and then how and your own natural flow, and then how many habits and things do you do that seem like they're going against the flow or they're restricting energy, right? So if you really kind of contemplate that, your goal is to see how well you can get your energy to go with the flow. So for people who have a lot of issues with the sacral chakra, one of the best things that you can do is try to be more spontaneous, get off your schedule, and do things that are sort of outside of your character, or just kind of like where you would sometimes put your foot down and kind of try to stand your ground. See if you can just go with the flow and see what happens. That can be a very powerful exercise. And what you're going to find with any of this is you start working with these lower chakras, your intuition may just open up on its own. You may never have to do anything but work on these chakras. That's why I'm spending so much time talking about them, because it's overlooked. People spend thousands of dollars paying for programs that are going to teach them how to kind of develop their intuition. And you could you could just work on your chakras and you can get close to, if not better than, that same effect that you can get in some of those programs. Signs that you may have some blockages in the sacral chakra are sexual problems, intimacy problems in the body, hip tightness, pain in the hips, issues of the low back, reproductive system issues, hormone issues. These would all point to issues of the sacral chakra. Now, remedies, like I mentioned, get off your schedule. See if you can just do a day where there's no schedule. Or if you can't do a day, see if you can do an hour or two where you just totally off schedule. Be spontaneous. I love taking a spontaneous day or a spontaneous part of the day where you just leave the house with literally no agenda, no idea where you're going. I personally like to do it on foot best, but you can do it on a bike or in a car, and you just kind of travel around and you see what arises and you just allow yourself to be spontaneous. Go in this place and get something to drink or eat. Go in that place and check out what's there and just see how spontaneous you can be. It can do so much wonders for your sacral chakra and for your intuition, because again, we need that flowing movement. We need to be more like water when we have our intuition open. Also, flowing movements, intuitive movement, where you just put on some music, close your eyes, and just let your body move. It can move some of these energetic blockages out of itself just through intuitive movement. But intuitive movement also will release emotions that are stuck there, and again helps you go with the flow. Deities that are connected to the sacral chakra that you can work with in this area are Lakshmi, Ostara, perfect timing since we're just about a week away from Ostara season. Venus, and Ixchel is a Mayan goddess, very connected to the sacral chakra. And then finally, that brings us to the root. The root is Muladhara, connected to the earth element. Now, the root chakra and the third eye have a very powerful, strong connection between them. The root chakra and the third eye are connected. So just backing up a little bit, you have three main energetic channels in your body. The sushumna goes through the center. It's close to your spine. So you could think of it as like your energetic spinal cord. And then you have the Ida and the Pingala. And these two channels, the Ida is the feminine channel and the Pingala is the masculine channel. Has nothing to do with gender. We all have just these two energies in our energetic system. But these two channels, they sort of interweave around the sushumna, starting in the root. They never touch again until they get to the third eye. So there is a direct energetic connection between your root chakra at the base of your spine and your third eye. And sometimes what happens is when people start working on their root, all of a sudden their intuition just blossoms and they didn't do anything and they're like, what just happened? Like, how did all this happen? And it was just through working with the root. So it's worth evaluating how grounded you are versus how ungrounded you are. So remember in the beginning, I was saying that most people who are spiritual really don't have blockages of the third eye. They got blockages underneath this. So many spiritual people don't realize how ungrounded they truly are. So you really want to think about this sort of phrase, root to rise. So it's grounding down first so that the energy will rise through your body into your spiritual centers. The signs that you may have some root chakra issues are not feeling safe or secure, having monetary issues, having some issues of the feet, the legs, the knees, all the lower parts of the body. Now, if you want to remedy root chakra problems, grounding meditation is really one of the most effective ways to do this. Really grounding down, like when you sit down or when you're standing, kind of imagine roots growing out of the part of your body that's touching the earth, and really see if you could feel that energetic connection standing on your feet in mountain pose, where you kind of bring your shoulders back and and then rock back and forth and see what it feels like when you bring your weight into the balls of your feet versus the heels, and really working with your grounding. Other things you can do is bringing your third eye down to the floor. So like a child pose is so good, or any like belly down poses in yoga. Bring the third eye down. Now, deities that, and also, traveling to places where there's like a strong earth connection. So into forests, into caves. I like to hike in the mountains because I've spent a long period of my life very ungrounded. I don't have a lot of earth energy in my astrological chart. My doshas have no earth energy in them either. And so it's something that I have had to work on. And I will tell you, as soon as I started working on that, my intuition really started to blossom. Deities you can work with are Ganesha, probably one of the best. They say he is the keeper of the root chakra. He lives in the root chakra of all people. Gaia and other like earth-based goddesses are also very good. So, well, most of us will have energetic blockages in one or more of the chakras. They You will probably find that one or two of them are going to stand out as being the ones that you want to start to work with. I think that daily energetic practice is highly important for anyone who's trying to do spiritual development. This can include breath work or mantras, or mudras, which are hand gestures that sort of call in certain energies. So, for example, like very grounding mudra, if you want to work with the grounding energy, is just bringing your thumb to your ring finger. This is often called the Prithvi mudra. Prithvi is the name of earth in Sanskrit. And this can be very, very grounding. And then you just sit and you could do the grounding tree meditation. But these mudras are beautiful because they immediately change the energetic composition slightly in the body and start to call in those different energies. Um, so there's something that's called the four-stroke breath that's also very good for being part of a daily practice. And I will, it's because of its connection to the third eye, it strengthens the third eye. I'm going to talk about that at the very end. But something else that you can do are working with the seed sounds if you just want to do an energetic reset of the entire body. So the seed sound for the root chakra is lum. It's spelled Lam, but we pronounce it lum. And I will put afterwards. I'll put these seed sounds in the chat so that you'll see the spellings of them, and that way you don't have to. That way you don't forget them. But you can kind of bring your attention to the root, see it sort of red in color, and then you intone the sound lum. Moving up into the sacral chakra, see, bring your attention to just right underneath the navel, in the low pelvic region. See that kind of glowing an orange color, and the seed sound is VUM, VAM, pronounced VUM. moving up into the solar plexus, so right above your navel, seeing that as a brilliant orange or what a yellow color, like the yellow of the sun. The seed sound is is rum, RAM. We pronounce it rum. And then the heart is the color green, so bringing your attention to the chest and seeing that vibrating a green color. And then the seed sound here is yum. This one's my favorite, yum, YAM, pronounced yum. Moving up into the throat, this one is hum, HAM, pronounced hum. You can see that vibrating a beautiful blue color. And then that's all the chakras we talked about today. And then you move up into the third eye, seeing that a brilliant purple color or amethyst. The seed sound there is om, OM. And then finally moving up to the crown, which is often visualized as kind of a white crystalline color. And there is no seed sound for this that's vocalized. It's actually an internal om. So you just hear that in your mind. So that can be a really nice just kind of reset for the chakras, a good way to balance them. And if you did all of that as sort of like a daily practice, you will feel that you're moving your energy in the right direction, and do that, for a regular time, a period of time, do it regularly. You may find that your intuition just starts to open up naturally or just begins to improve. But let's spend the rest of the time talking about self-doubt and fears, and then I'm going to show you a couple of third eye exercises at the end. Because my recommendation for anybody who's having issues with the intuition is to balance your energy below the third eye and then do some third eye strengthening exercises. And if you do all that together, that is very, very helpful. Let me just go to the chat before I move into this. Okay, so I'm hoping the internet's still okay. Taliesin said his was skipping, so I'm hoping it's just his internet and not mine causing problems. Andrea said she's excited for that workshop this weekend. Yeah, it's going to be really fun. I'm excited for it too. Okay, Kurt said, can antidepressant medicine or other types of medicine throw your intuition off? It's a really good question. I think, and I see like others are saying it's a very good question. I think it's a very good question. I feel that the benefits of antidepressant medication probably outweigh any complications that they might cause in intuition. Because the thing is if a person goes off antidepressant medication and then they become very, very depressed, they're going to have all this stuck and stagnant energy in the lower chakras, and the blockages are going to be enough. They're going to cause issues of the intuition themselves. So I think that the benefit will greatly outweigh any issues that it might have caused in the intuition. Things that I think could throw off intuition, and they're not prescribed as much anymore, but like the benzodiazepines, which would be more prescribed for anxiety, like Xanax or Valium, things like that. Like, they have similar mechanisms to alcohol, and alcohol isn't really great for intuition. Because what it does is it sort of dampens the system, and so that would be like my only thing. But again, they don't prescribe those a lot, so people don't take them as much anymore. And again, if a person truly needs their medication, any medication is going to be better than not having it. If the symptoms of the depression or the anxiety are so severe, they're going to be more in the way of your intuition than anything. But I don't think your typical like SSRIs or SSNRIs are going to cause problems with your intuition. But it's a very, very good question. Okay. And in fact, too, if a person needs like medication to relax, again, remember the key to intuition is being relaxed, and kind of going with the flow, being like water, right? And if we're too tense, we're not going to be in that place. So many of these medications should naturally help. I do know, like, if somebody's really, really tensed up, the one herbal supplement is lemon balm. Lemon balm can be very good for relaxing you, and sometimes people have a good benefit from that if they've been having a lot of anxiety and maybe that's getting in their way of their intuition. But great question. Okay, so let's talk about self-doubt. So I've mentioned, we've already talked about it a little bit, but we'll talk about it a little bit more here. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's active in most people. So most people are experiencing self-doubt, even if it's unconscious. So you really need to. This is where the work comes in because it's really very much mental, and mental work is hard for people. We live in a society. I mentioned this last week in the last episode. People want quick answers. They want quick fixes. Society has taught us that you can just press a button and have things delivered to you later that day or in an hour. Your groceries, everything. Everything is, we're always looking for these quick fixes. But when it comes to things that are in the more spiritual realm, the speed of quickness in this outside world is not, that does not translate into the spiritual world. Much of what we struggle with in our spiritual journey is part of our spiritual growth, our spiritual evolution. It's part of why we were brought here to in this incarnation at this time. And if you get attracted to spiritual groups or spiritual people or spiritual topics of study, it's very good chance that that is part of your life path. You're here to work on something, and sadly, or not so sadly, because it's really how this should work, is it's not a quick fix. So it's just really important to manage your expectations. Like I said, you're not going to snap your fingers and now you're psychic. It's like everybody has the ability to be intuitive, but many of us have to put in this work. And so this is the same thing that happens with the self-doubt. So you really have to decide, like, I'm in it for the long haul. I'm here to do the work. I'm going to be patient. Think about the temperance card, how many times that card comes up for me. It's reminding me, pull back and be patient. Enjoy the ride. We're here for a while. So we might as well start to enjoy it, right? And so when it comes to your self-doubt, the one thing that you want to think about, and in your intuition, so when you decide that you're going to work on your intuition, you have to ask yourself, am I standing there with one foot in and one foot out? With your spiritual journey as well, with your shadow work, am I there with one foot in and one foot out? And if so, put both of your feet in the same place. If you don't want to work on this, if you don't want to put in the work, step out of it for now. It may be that now is not the time to do that kind of work. Maybe right now your energy is in a place where it needs quick fixes and quick answers. But if you are in a place where you feel that you can move your spiritual journey forward, put both feet in and move forward with this. You can always step out later and be like, I'll work on it some other time. But you really do have to make a commitment. Are you in or are you out? And I think that was, for me, this is the beginning of the game changer for me. So I decided that, like, I can walk this sort of this line in between trusting myself and not trusting myself, being in my power or not being in my power. And uh, you know I can walk that line forever and not get very far, right? Except for having a lot of kind of stress and struggles in my life. Or I can decide to go all in. And so I remember very clearly there was this one night at a full moon ritual at the beach when I decided, like, you've got to at least go all in and you got to try this, And so what I did is I made a deal with myself, and I suggest that you make this similar deal with yourself and other people who've done this. So, like, this isn't the first time I've talked about it in a video, but other people who have tried this have written to me later or said to me, like, online, it really works. It really does when you do this. So you make a deal with yourself that you can start for just a moon cycle, or if that seems like too long, just a week or just a couple of days or just a day. And you are going to trust yourself. You're going to trust your intuition. You're on this path and you're working on your intuition. You're going to trust it, okay? And so if something comes through and it feels like intuition, you're going to trust that unless somebody or something proves you wrong. Now, most of the time, that somebody or that something doesn't come along. That's you. It's just you. It's voices in your head that are trying to prove you wrong, or your doubts or your fears. But a lot of times, like, it's not somebody else. Now, sometimes you'll have an intuition about something. It happens to me as well, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna move forward as though this were an intuition, and then shortly after, it's disproven. It wasn't true. It wasn't an intuition. Okay, so that one wasn't. We try to learn from that as well. So when you think about the intuition, the intuitive moments in your life where your intuition was right, what was different about those moments than when your intuition was wrong? Now, for everybody, unfortunately, there's a different answer to this. It's not just always about your gut. So sometimes what people will say, you got to listen to your gut, but not everybody feels intuition in your gut. So that is another thing that you want to consider is there a part of your body where you feel intuition? For me, it's generally not a bodily response. My intuition comes through as thought. And so the sooner that I realized that, the better this was for me, because then when like I would get this like kind of feeling in my stomach, I knew that that wasn't intuition. It's just like a thought to me. So here's an example with this is like I fear very much losing my animals because I love them so much. I'm so connected to them. And so I fear losing my cat, Cammy especially, and so I will get these like fears about him. Is he walking strange? Is he breathing strange? Or things like that. And it's this visceral feeling of fear, right? And so I've learned over time, this isn't my intuition trying to tell me there's something wrong with him. It's just my fears of losing him. As opposed to this one night shortly before my iguana died. She died in May of last year. And I remember I went out to her cage and I just looked at her, and it was this very crystal clear thought in my mind, and it said, she's going to die. And it was like, of course, there's like sadness attached to it, but there was not this visceral feeling in my stomach. It was just a clear thought, she's going to die. And then she died a few days later. And so for me, this is my story. So my story is going to be different than yours, but it's learning how to tease that apart and differentiate what is intuition versus what is fear, what is anxiety. So what you have to do though is you have to start with this deal with yourself. I'm going to try to follow my intuition, and then things will prove it wrong. So let's say with the fears I was having about Cammy, I would have those fears. Well, nothing bad happens to him following that. So I start to train myself to understand that when I feel that way in my stomach about him, it's not intuition, right? As opposed to the story with Yoshi, the iguana, when I had that crystal clear thought and then she died 2 days later, that was intuition. So I recommend that you have a journal where you start to jot down, like once you make your deal and you're like, this is the moon cycle where I'm going to work on this. Um, Start to jot down what feels like this could be an intuition, and then kind of follow it through. Did it come true? Okay, well, that one wasn't. Well, what was going on in your body? What was going on in your mind? How were you feeling? Write all of that down, and then you'll have like if I was keeping that journal, right, I would start to see those patterns. So the other thing that you really want to do is act in alignment with the person that you are becoming. So act in alignment with the person that you want to be, not with the person who you are. So if the person that you are right now is fearful and doubtful of themselves and all those things, act in alignment with the person who is not. So what would a person do? How would you act if you truly believed in your intuition? What would you do? How would you act? So contemplate that. That's going to be a different answer for everybody. So sadly, I don't have like a magic wand to wave with a magic secret that will connect you to your intuition. But if you pick up just a fraction of what I'm saying tonight, you're going to change something. I know that you will, because it worked for me, and I know it can work for others, and it has worked for others because others have shared similar stories. So think about what kind of a person would you be if you trusted your intuition, and see if you can act in alignment with that person. So again, kind of recapping, feeling, it's noticing in your body, where do you feel intuition? Really think about it, okay? You can do this nice little exercise. We actually have this in Shadow Seekers. It's an extended full version of it. But anybody can do this exercise where you kind of close your eyes, get into an intuitive or a more relaxed state, and then ask your body, where is the yes? And see if a part of your body sort of speaks, kind of comes online. Where do you feel the yes in your body versus where do you feel the no in your body? And see if you can learn where that is for you. Again, figure out what clair sense you use to pick up uh, intuitive things coming through to you. So for me, it was claircognizance. Other people, it may be clairsentience. They just feel it somewhere. They feel it in their body, or they have this feeling in their heart. Other people, it may be clairvoyance. They see through either their internal eyes. Most of the time, clairvoyants see through their internal eyes, though some can see through the external eyes. For some, it may be clairaudience. They hear either through the internal or the external eyes, or ears rather. So we do have an episode on uh, the clair senses. So if you haven't watched that, there's two versions of it. The updated one is by far the best one from a few months ago. So I'm just going to drop that in the chat. If you're on YouTube later, it'll just be below in the comments. So let me put that in here now. I wish I'd pulled it up earlier. I can't find it right now, but I will find it and I will put it here in the chat. And you can also go look for it, but it's on the clair. Here we go, clair senses. It was episode 95 on the clair senses. So let me just drop this in the chat. So I highly recommend if you're interested in learning more about intuition, I would explore the clair senses and just see if one or more of these kind of speaks to you, and then that will help you develop your intuition a little bit better as well. Also, explore any fears that surround your intuition. Sometimes people are afraid of becoming more powerful. Sometimes people are afraid of the way it would change them or people around them. So you might also want to explore in your shadow work what would change about you or about people around you if you were the intuitive person that you wish to be. So really kind of explore that as well. So if we can let go of some of these blockages in the energetic body, if we can release some of our self-fear or our self-doubt and transform that into self-belief, if we can release some of our fears, then eventually you really do experience a very deep third eye opening. And that's what happened to me. So like I said, I decided one night, it's just both feet in, and from then on, my life changed greatly. Before that, I didn't have this business. I wasn't teaching people like this. I taught in my own personal private coven here. But when I opened up my intuition, I understood the pathways to take. It was a huge game changer for me. And it's all these practices I talked about tonight. This is exactly what I did. So I wanted to leave you with just two exercises that you can use for your third eye. So one is a mudra. This is called the Hikini mudra. So to make the Hikini mudra, you bring all of your fingers together like this. I think of it as sort of like a little pyramid that you make. And you can bring it, sometimes people like to bring it to their heart. Other times, I really love to bring it to my third eye. And you can do some of your breath work with your Hikini mudra, or you can meditate with the Hikini mudra. But just simply the act of bringing the fingers together like this is enough to stimulate your third eye. So very, very beautiful, beautiful mudra, the Hikini mudra. And then I wanted to share with you the 4-stroke breath. And the 4-stroke breath is excellent. It balances the energetic system, but it is especially good for strengthening your third eye. Okay, so here's how you do the 4-stroke breath. So you can add this mudra. And so most of the time what people do is you sort of interlace your fingers, and then you're just going to have your pointer finger straight up like this, okay? Ideally what you want to do is I kind of bring them like my hands sort of to my heart, but you might bring it up just so like if you look down the tip of your nose, you want to be able to see your 2 index fingers, okay? And then when you do the breath, what you're going to do is you're going to do something that's called 1/10 open, 9/10 closed. And so that's where your eyes are like, it's like you're trying to pretend like you were sleeping, but you've got the eyes open a little bit. It's sort of like that. And so you'll be gazing down the tip of your nose at your fingers, okay, with this sort of 9/10 closed, 1/10 open eyes. And then you will do this breath. So it's called a 4-stroke breath because you're going to breathe in 4 strokes, okay? So when you inhale, you're going to inhale through your open mouth like in an O shaped, and you will so it's going to look like this, so you'll breathe in like a fourth of the way, and then a fourth of the way, a fourth of the way, a fourth of the way. So it looks like this. Okay, then when you get to the top of the breath, you can either breathe out like forcefully through the mouth, like that, or sometimes people will close the mouth and they breathe out through the nose. That's my ideal way of doing it. So it's the 4-stroke breath in, then I close my mouth, and then I breathe out through the nose. And while I'm gazing down at my fingertips in this mudra with my eyes 10th closed, or 10th open, I should say. So it'll look like this. Okay, so I think I did 5 strokes on some of those, so it's supposed to be 4 in and then the 1 out. And if you do that for a minute or 2 minutes a day as part of your daily practice, that is very, very stimulating for the third eye. Okay, so I just wanted to leave you with that and try some of these practices. I hope that they help. We're just going to segue into the Q&A. I don't really have many questions. I have one question that Danielle left for me, and I'm going to start with that one. If anybody here in the chat has any questions, you can leave those too, and they can be about anything related to witchcraft, magic, energy work, shadow work. Okay. Let me see here. Okay, well, let me start with Danielle's question. That'll give people a chance to put anything in the chat they want. Okay, so Danielle she's asking about manifestation and intentions. So she said, I've been focusing on manifesting and intentions. I have learned that both come with change and hard work, and most of the time don't fall right into my hands. Can you explain what manifesting and intention are for you? Okay, very good. So great question. I know that others probably can relate to this as well. So, so I feel that like with intention setting is about what type of an energy do we want to draw in right now. So we can set an intention for love. We can set an intention for self-belief. We can set an intention for wisdom or for healing. And oftentimes our intentions will then color what we do next. So like, for example, in my in-person coven, prior to like starting any of this online work that I've been doing, when we would approach a full moon or we would approach a Sabbath, there would be an intention that would be chosen, that would be set. So we would say, for example, Ostara, the intention is seed planting. So so generally the intention is kind of general. Seed planting, there could be a lot of ways that a person could do seed planting, right? But the intention itself is set. And then from there, the rest of the ritual, the rest of the magical working kind of evolves around it. The deity is chosen who is connected to that intention. The practices are chosen that would help aid that intention. The spell work, any correspondences we're using are selected because of that intention. So that's kind of my feeling on intentions. Intentions are just like, what is the energy that I want to draw in right now? I want balance. So I set the intention of balance. And then from there, I decide how I will create balance. Now, manifesting is a word that's kind of interesting. And that's why I really love the question. I wanted to talk about this because sometimes witches hate the word manifestation. And it's something that like kind of came up in the very beginning of my business. There was a course that I sold in the very beginning. It never got sold again, and it was called Money Magic. And in the beginning, it was actually called Money Manifestation. And this is like before I'd ever sold anything. And I was asking Jezadora about just her feedback on the website I had created to sell this course. And she was like, well, maybe the word manifestation sometimes is a word that witches don't like. And she said, maybe you should change it to magic. So it's really keyed towards witches. Like we hear the word magic, especially with the CK, and witches know that's for them. It's like, it's just, other people don't put the K on the magic, right? And so I had always used manifestation and magic interchangeably, the words. And personally, to me, I think that they are. But I think that what she was talking about is sometimes manifestation gets this like strange connotation added to it because of people who are not in sort of the witchcraft realm. There are people like, for example, like with the book The Secret. I never read The Secret fully. I understand some of the concepts within it, and in the theories, the ideas in The Secret itself are very good. But what people did with it later is I guess that's where some witches it kind of turns people off a little bit, because there are some people who use the word manifestation to talk about like, if you're manifesting the life you want, then you are you're doing a good job, and if you're not manifesting the life that you want, then you're not doing a good job. Or that if you draw in, like, let's say like bad things happen to you, that you must have drawn those things in, because everything is manifestation. So I don't get on board with that. Like I feel like it begins to victim blame. Like, so let's say a terrible thing happens to somebody. I was attacked when I was in grad school, and I was beaten up and left on the side of the street. And to like say that I attracted that in some way is really off-putting, and it's not. I don't really think that that's the way that energy necessarily works. Sometimes bad things happen to us because we're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or perhaps they're part of lessons that we had to learn, but we're not attracting them. But sometimes people use that idea of manifestation to say we manifest every single thing, even the bad things, and that it can very quickly go to victim blaming. So I see why some witches don't like the word manifestation. But to me, it's like about drawing in magic. I prefer the word magic, but I also use the word manifestation. Manifesting is about drawing in desired outcomes. And so one of the things that Danielle was talking about is she's learned that it comes with change, with hard work, and most of the time it doesn't fall right into her hands. And sometimes the energy just aligns properly, and it's easy to manifest a certain thing. But most of the time she's right. Most of the time it is. It's not easy. It's not as easy as sometimes people make it out to feel, and that can make people feel like they're doing a bad job at it. Like if you don't immediately get the thing that you have set out an intention for, that you're doing it wrong, you're doing a bad job. Sometimes it can be about our energy. It's much easier to manifest like a way of being, like a mindset change, than it is to manifest or create something out in the outside world. So changing our views about money can be it can be easier than manifesting physical money. Doesn't mean that we can't, but sometimes it starts with ourselves. And so that's why it can feel like it takes a long time. Like um, when we're unable to kind of draw in what we desire, a lot of it can have to do with like our energy isn't aligned, the energetic imbalances are in the body, things like that. And so the work comes through the effort of making those changes. So we set the intention. Perhaps we do some kind of a magic ritual, right? We do some magic, we do a ritual, we do spell work, maybe we call it manifestation, whatever you're choosing to call it. You do that act, and you continue to work on yourself as well. So that's where sometimes where people they forget that there's work that you have to continue to put in. It's not just like we do the spell and then magically all of this manifests. Sometimes it does do it that way, but sometimes it's us continuing to do the work. Like a person who wants love puts out the intention of attracting a partner and then just sits in their house all day, it's going to be hard to find the partner, right? So they got to do this outside work. They have to be on a dating app, or they have to be going places where they're going to meet someone. And so there's the outside work that also has to be done. And that's where I also think, too, is that when we want to manifest or create really big changes in our lives, it can take time. So it can be repeating a spell over and over every cycle that strengthens the intention, that strengthens the manifestation, or the energy that you are creating. It makes it very clear to the universe what it is you're trying to draw in. Um, but she is right. Danielle's right. Oftentimes it does come with change within us, right, to manifest the things that we want, and the hard effort and the hard work, which goes back to kind of what I was talking about earlier, is the spiritual stuff isn't really meant to be easy all the time. It's the work of your life. It's the work of your soul. It's the work of why you're here. So that's kind of my feeling, but what I have found is, when I find it difficult to manifest something that I want, I usually first look at my energy. I see where that's aligned. I look at like maybe blockages, or unaligned, or aligned or not aligned. I look at any blockages I could have. I might even try to revisit like past lives to see if there's anything blocking it there. And a lot of times once we remove the blockages, then the energy flows forward, and then the manifestation it transpires. So I hope that helps. But if you, Danielle, or anybody else has any follow-up questions about it, or anything that you wanted to know that I sort of left out, let me know. But that is kind of my thoughts on manifesting. Um, so Stephanie said she's always wondered why she's so attracted to Norse paganism. And she said, and then I wonder if it's from a past life or ancestors or just an interest. She said, I feel in my gut, maybe all three, hopefully find the answer eventually. Yeah. So if you feel in your gut, that's usually a good indication, especially if that's how you feel things. That's a good indication that it is all three. So I think that people are often attracted to pantheons that they from cultures that they were part of in a past life. I absolutely do. I've been attracted to the Hindu pantheon for a very, very, very long time. Always was attracted to India, and so I do believe that I lived at least one life in India, and so it can explain that attraction as well. So it can be the past life, it could be, which also could connect to ancestors. Sometimes though, there are just like stories that we're just attracted to. So like I was always attracted to kind of the Greek mythology. Always loved it. As far as I know, I don't have any past lives there or ancestors there, but just always loved that culture and the stories. And so I was attracted to Greek deities in the very beginning of coming to the path. But yeah, I definitely believe that people get attracted to pantheons that they have experienced in past lives. And I see Cersei's also joined us. Well, Merry Meet. Does anybody have any other questions that they would like to ask? You can put those in the chat now. If you're watching back in replay, you can also ask questions. I go back later and I'll answer anything we didn't do in the live. So while we're waiting to see if anybody else has any more, let me just tell you what's coming up. So next week on 3/18, we are just like a day away from the equinox, or 2 days away from the equinox at that point. And so we're going to be doing our episode on Ostara and the spring equinox. And then on 3/25, I believe I'm doing an episode on new moon magic, because we'll be right at the new moon. And we'll be talking a lot about intentions, because new moon is a good time for intention setting. And then on 4/2, I think I'm going to be doing an episode on types of witchcraft. So stay tuned for all those good things coming up. Our Demystifying Witchcraft course will be opening in very early to mid-April. I feel like we're about to go into Mercury retrograde. I'm already sensing this one to be a complicated one. I'm not really sure I want to be selling anything or doing any tech thing that requires a lot of tech during Mercury retrograde. It will be going direct, I think, on like the 6th or 7th of April, in which case that is probably when I'm going to open up my course right then. So watch for Demystifying Witchcraft. For those of you who are looking for a comprehensive course on witchcraft that teaches you, all the basics, this course is the course I have used to train all my in-person coven members, as well as our new online coven. We use this course to train all of them as well. And the course, for those who are interested, the course will lead to an invitation to join our coven if you want, but you can also just take the course just for your own knowledge. So if you're somebody who's newer to the craft, the course may be perfect for you, but also if you're somebody who's been around in the craft for a long time and just never had any formal training, you might also find the course very beneficial. So look for more information about that coming soon. It should be opening in 3 weeks when that retrograde is over. And then our Shadow Seekers membership, which is where you can dive further into things like developing intuition, working through your shadow aspects, working on your energy work, all of that. Our Shadow Seekers membership will be opening up to new members sometime in May, probably in the beginning of May. All right, so let me see if there's anything I missed. All right, so if you like what you hear, make sure to leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the video. That helps us get this out to the feed of more people. If you're watching back later on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel Body, Mind, Witchcraft on YouTube, and that way you won't miss any future episodes. And until next time, blessed be.